Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, Man and Nature, produced by Batusha Afrina, is back with the latest episode. Do join me, Sheikh Muhammad Saifuddin by Sheikh Muhammad Saleh, for the next 30 minutes as we discuss the topic Role of Youth in Biodiversity Conservation. As usual, I'm not alone in the studio. Please welcome Dr. Azizi bin Abu Bakar, Research Officer at the University Malaya Sustainability Development Centre. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Azizi.
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Sheikh.
Welcome to Man and Nature.
Yeah, very much pleasure.
Dr. Azizi, perhaps before we proceed with our discussion, could you tell us a bit about University Malaya Sustainable Development Centre, or UMSDC?
Okay. So University Malaya Sustainable Development Centre, or in short we call it as a UMSDC, is a centre that is headed by our director, this is Associate Professor Dr. Zida Fatima, and the advisor is Honorary Professor Mariam Nik Sulaiman. So the establishment of this centre is mainly to evolve the University Malaya into a more sustainable campus. So when we talk about what is more sustainable campus, it addresses to the key role and responsibilities. So the key operation, where is the education, research, operational and governance. So that is the key operation, the main key operation of the universities for the well-being of the internal campus community, including the student and the staff, and also the community surrounding its environment. So if I can say that the principle held by this center is to walk the talk as much as possible, and based on this grounding aspire to contribute to the sustainability of the external community at the various levels, which means it's not only within the community, but we're going to aspire to the community outside of the university. For example, at the adjacent community, nearby community of the university. For example, University Malaya is nearby to the Petaling Jaya community, as well as the Bangsa community. So that is the various levels towards national, regional, and we are very optimistic towards to the international levels. So our strategic outlook at the moment, frame UMSDC, is in providing innovative solution for the sustainable future by using UM campus as a space for creative solution for a sustainable future. So this is by using UM campus as a testbed. So I can say it's testbed because UM campus is a space for a creative experimentation and for the nurturing of the sustainability lifestyle and culture. Because we have to start within our community first. Then we can aspire, not falsely to the other people outside there, but we aspire people outside there. So we must ensure to walk the talk within the community first. So, and the vision is to use the innovation. So the innovation is not only for the technology base, but it's also for the non-technology base to drive the UM sustainability transition to a world-class sustainable campus. So, so that is actually what I can say that about the University Malaya Sustainable Development Centre, UMSDC.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azizi. Now let's move on to our topic. Our topic chosen is Role of Youth in Biodiversity Conservation. Why do you think the involvement of youth is crucial in biodiversity conservation efforts?
Okay, so if I might take some statement from the Global Risk Report in 2022, published by the World Economic Forum, the top 3 most serious risks that could occur in the next decade are failure to combat the climate change, extreme weather events, where we are facing right now, and biodiversity loss. So when we are talking about biodiversity loss, it is important and crucially needed because the biodiversity conversation is become some main topic when we like to encounter about the biodiversity loss. So and then the involvement of this action actually is not for the youth. It's actually for all people. But right now, because we are concerning more about the role of the youth, so we have to talk about what are the role of the youth that the youth can do. So youth are the future leaders right now. So when there is a famous quote that stated about the sustainability, we are borrowing resources from the next generations. So we must prepare the young people nowadays, which means that we take the young people nowadays, who are the youth, to take the lead before it's too late. So if I can take it according to the United Nations, there are currently 1.2 billion young people. so making up 16% of the global population. So within this 16% of global population, the UN Secretariat and UNESCO define the youth as those age of 15 to 24 years old.
Okay.
So that is the 16 years old, the 16% of the global population. But that is only one definition. Whereas the United Nations also, the other UN entities also has other definitions. The other UN entities, for example, is for instance, the UN Habitat consider youth to be between 15 to 32 years old. So there is a difference there, 24 and 32. But it starts from the 15 years old. But we are in Malaysia right now, Dr. Che. So when we're in Malaysia, the Youth Society and Youth Development Act 2007 initially defined youth as those aged 15 to 40 years old. So however, this is going to be changed. Starting from January 1st, 2026, the age range will be 15 to 30 years old. So if we apply Malaysia border definition of global definition for the youth, we could see that nearly half of the world population could be considered as youth. If you take the Malaysian definition, which is 15 to the 40 years old. So by understanding this definition of the age range, the significant portion of young people worldwide is actually from the global population is actually youth. So they are about half of the global population is youth. In fact, when we are talking about the Malaysian itself, when we are concerning about the biological diversity, so Malaysia is one of the 17 mega diversity countries in the world recognized for its flora and fauna. So it is our duty here as a youth to conserve and make it resilient in a time of climate change. So this duty does not fall solely on the government, but it's a shared obligation that requires the active participation of the entire population regardless of their specification and also the rules. So what we can say here, back to the question, why do we think that involvement of youth is crucial? Because of the youth itself, the population is making half of the global population. And at the same time, it's also the pressing issue of the biodiversity loss. So where with these significant numbers of the population, when they have a similar in mind to have to take actions to conserve the biological diversity, so it will make, inshallah, something change, will improve the biological conservation of the world as a whole. And as we take it back to Malaysia itself, Dr. Shea, this has also been emphasized by one of our, because we need figure in Malaysia. When we have figures, not figures in terms of numbers, but figures in terms of who are the youth that it can be a role model. So we can take here the Crown Prince of Pahang, the Tunku Hasanul Ibrahim Alam Shah, who advocates for greater youth involvement in environmental conservation. So this is a good example for us. So he emphasized the importance of youth taking action to restore and sustain our environment, including making sustainable choices in our daily lives.
Right.
So I think it's timely for now.
Right. I think that's why we chose this topic to be discussed, because we cannot deny the important role that youth play, especially with regards to conserving the biodiversity. So, in your opinion, Doctor, what unique perspectives and skills do young people bring to the table when it comes to protecting our planet's biodiversity?
Okay, because youth is, because we already talked about the definition of the youth in terms of the age. So within the age, it actually represent the age of the creative, innovative, and talented segment of the global population. So if we fail to mobilize and guide of this population at the right platforms and in the right directions, so we might risk waiting for another generations to combat or to make a correction of what we have failed now at the current times. So the youth movement, for example, we have the populations with the youth movement by fostering peer awareness in our interconnected world. With this, half of the population of the youth can greatly amplify efforts to conserve the planet biodiversity. So when young people share the best practices among themselves and generate ideas, so it will lead to more effective and coordinated action. So these collaborative spirits allow us to engage and develop solution altogether. So use voices in international platforms when you took it at a large numbers of the whole population will make a significant contribution to our global biodiversity conservation. So this is to the intergenerational equity. It often relates to decision makers today as to allow the future leaders to participate and making decision for future undertaking while living in a healthy planet. So it's not about talking in a high energy, Dr. Sheikh, but or with pressure or protesting, where we can see that that's the energy of the youth nowadays. But doing things by taking action in co-building way, we are co-building together that can really make a transformation or the change that we really need it.
Right. So in other words, youth can play a role by putting words into meaningful action.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that should be emphasized to our generation today. Dr. Azizi, I know that you have actually spent quite a number of years in Japan doing your postgraduate studies. So based on your experience in Japan, can you share some examples of successful biodiversity conservation projects in that country that involve youth?
Okay. So when we are talking about Japan, so commonly people know that Japanese people have a strong history of valuing the nature. But the threats in recent decades, including deforestation as well as the invasion of the alien species, which is not native to the area, which is the islands of the Japan, have put a strain on the hotspot ecosystems. So today, there is only 20% of the countries, means Japan, original vegetation is come to intact, where the almost 80% has already been lost. So this entitled Japan as one of the 36 recognized biodiversity hotspots, which is what the meaning of biodiversity hotspots is actually the Earth's most biologically rich, yet threatened, where the terrestrial regions. So an area that can be identified as a biodiversity hotspot, which I can read here, there's two strict criteria. The first one, the area contain at least 1,500 species of vascular plants found nowhere else on Earth, which is the endemic species. So means that they could at least have 1,500 species which is native to the Japanese islands. And then the other criteria is they have at least lost 70% of its primary native vegetations. So when it's loss of 70% of its native vegetations means this is alarming, where Japan already being recognized and already included as one of the biodiversity hotspots because they meet these criteria. So in relation to youth, we can say that just recently established in 2019 a movement by a group named Change Our Next Decade, COND, so have been actively participating in creating a framework for Japan youth activities in making policy recommendations to protect the biodiversity for the next decade, which has accelerated the initiative to protect the biodiversity initiative by Japan by coordinating it not only by themselves, but with the NGO and including the government itself, the government of Japan. So they are moved hand in hand in equal footing. So this is actually something that inspiring us in Malaysia as a youth also to boldly take on challenges without fear of failure. So as a result of their action, Dr. Say, so based on their bodily and proactive action, they have been invited to representing Japanese youth at the International Youth Conference on the Biodiversity, which will be held in this August 2024 in Yokohama. Taking place, the Yokohama city has been taking the pattern to organize the conference for the International Youth Conference. And then as well as this one is the main one for the biological convention, biodiversity convention, I'm sorry. So the UN conference of the party on the convention on the biological diversity, which is a COP 16, which will be held in Colombia in this November 2024. So what they can do, the youth of the Japanese that become an example that we can inspire us, they will be sharing experiences and plan actions that they already, discussed and thinking not only by themselves but together with the other entities, the main entities in Japan, to support of the effective implementations by using the one that's already approved, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework from the previous COP15. So they are not just voicing out of what they have been thinking that what they should do for their countries in terms of the biological conservation, but they are also following what are the needs of the world, as currently been mentioning about not only for the community of the youth in the Japan, but also the whole world actually. So I think it's a good example for youth in Malaysia. Unfortunately, Malaysia's youth, there is no representative for this. So particularly to think of, and this is something that some inspiring achievement for us to take a rigorous action in mind, because our country is also included as one of the 36 biodiversity hotspot countries.
Right.
But we don't have any delegation from the youth from Malaysia.
Okay.
Right.
So do you think if the conference were to be held again, we will have? We will be sending any delegation?
I hope so. From this platform, I hope it can be have some significant change for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's pray towards that, inshallah. In your opinion, Dr. Azizi, what are some effective ways that we can educate and also engage young people in biodiversity conservation activities?
Okay. Okay. The use itself is the age where the young people is actually like to use their interest. So at this age, when we like to have this, when dealing with this kind of people, in the age of the young people, and we know they have their own interests, so we have to use their interests, for example, on the current trending and the focus of the youth today, in a more fascinating channel, which is, but the main focus is to educate and engage them by using the platform of what we call now as a citizen science.
Okay.
So citizen science program play a key role in conservation efforts, and in particular in providing the mostly on the observational data, because we are talking about of the biodiversity conservation.
Yeah.
So this will be a combined, not only solely on the we incorporate in the citizen science, combined with large volumes of the environmental data, means they have to deal with the environmental data, large volume, a big chunk of it, to produce, for example, spatio-temporal statistical and machine learning models, for example, of bird species, occurrence, and abundance, provide the habitat preference of the birds at a fine resolution. This is just for examples, and leading to novel approaches of bird conservation. So with these kinds of the program, the citizen science is actually could help the young people, which is the youth, to join by combining all of these interesting and fascinating channels by using the data, the large of data, and then how they're going to communicate it. So it will make it more something like a program that they can be they can enjoy to participate. However, in this citizen science program, there is an issue with it, where the citizen scientists who offering of this kind of, for example, this is a bird species to identify the bird species occurrence, and as well as the habitat preference by using this citizen science program. There is a bias of it, because in the most of the participants of this citizen science, it could be used, or it could be other aspect, other group of people. They could be biased where they are following on the area that they are interest. So they are not visiting at the area that they are need, which is under sample areas. So when we are going back to the engage and educate young people in the biodiversity, how we're going to deal with this kind of situation because they have their own interests and how we're going to deal with it. Some that suggestions that we can try to intervene here is to incentivize the use. So how we're going to incentivize means we incentivize the use for following the citizen science program, but when they are doing it at the undersample areas. So I think that is how the dynamics that we can intervene when we are trying to taking as an example is a citizen science program to introduce to the young people. But then when there is an issue there, so there is some intervention that we can do to make them to stick and keep engaging and with the interest of the conserving the biodiversity.
Right. You mentioned about there may be a need to intensify. Incentivize.
Yeah.
It's a big word, but nonetheless, that basically requires funding.
Yeah.
And I remember one of our guests before, actually said, conservation without funding is merely conversation. So I think we cannot run away from the fact that for conservation efforts we do need funding.
Yeah.
Dr. Azizi, let's shift our focus to schools and universities. With you coming from UM, how can schools and universities integrate biodiversity conservation into their curriculums and also extracurricular activities?
Okay, this is going to be a bit long explanation because when we are talking about education in school and universities that would like to integrate the biodiversity conversation, be it in curricular or extracurricular activities, when we are looking back on the research by the social scientists, so there is one key indicator that has been suggested. If I can take it into account here, is the conservation education effectiveness is long-lasting changes in attitudes, behavioral attention, and ultimately behavior. So the most term coined here by the social scientists is the behavior. I could say it is a behavior change. So when we are talking about the biodiversity conservations, we are actually dealing with the human behavior. So awareness and knowledge of nature conservation alone is not enough, Dr. Shay, because we can raise the awareness. We can change the awareness from nothing to something about the biodiversity conservation. But then how does it make change to our biodiversity conservation itself? So that it can be realized into our eyes, that we can see that, yes, we make a progress. It make something a positive impact towards our biodiversity. So when we like to take it into the curriculums and extracurricular activities, the things that we need to do, we need to take into consideration is the aspects of the social, economic, and societal issues. So these should be incorporated in the curriculum and extracurricular activities to influence the behavior itself. Because as mentioned just now, the social scientist has been keep mentioning the most pressing term, which is the behavior and the behavior change. So when we are talking about the behavior, and we are trying to tap it onto the or integrate it with the biodiversity conservation, is not only about the biological aspect solely, but also we need to incorporate the economic aspect, the social aspect, and also the societal issues to have to influence the behavior of the, particularly in this topic, is the youth or the future generation or those who are studying in schools and universities. So this is where, Dr. Shea, where we can see that interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary approaches is needed in dealing with this education for the biological biodiversity conservations. So for example, if I can take one example, is from the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, GYBN. there have been calls for transformative education, Dr. Shea. So in their call for achieving the future global biodiversity goals and define it as the same as diverse approaches. So it's not solely of a biological or biodiversity itself, it's a diverse approaches and strategies for education and learning that foster an active citizenry aware of their place in the web of life. So they add on another term is here is their role in their society, fully capable of stewarding their society towards a sustainable, peaceful, and equitable future in harmony with nature. So, what is that is telling us about? So, this discipline that deals with observing nature is how it become a discipline that started to deal with a socio-economic issues. It deal with the issues of the policy of the certain areas where there is issues of the biodiversity conservations and politics as well. Dr. Shea. So the changes are needed in defining the way we view education for conservation, either in schools and university. If I may take another example also from the UNESCO Futures of Education Initiative. So under the auspices of an international commission set up by the Director General, is focusing on rethinking of the role of education. What are the part that they have been rethinking of the role of the education? So some of the part here is several modern views now that should be taken into our considerations. The concern is mostly on the gist of the education. It must tailor to the local needs, defining in local own concept by using local tools and local learning methods, not defining, because we are not defining by using a standard tools, by using a standard, what you can say here is a standard concept, because we have a diversity of human history. We have a diverse, because we have different continents with different cultures. So we must deal with these kinds of issues, although it's about the biodiversity conservation, where it's native to each places, then we have to deal it with their native tools, with their native technologies, not on by using the standard technologies. So that's a different now, because when we are talking about something that now when we try to go for international or international standards in terms of biodiversity conservation, we cannot use only a specific or standard international standard tools of or strategies to deal or to answer of all different places in the world, because they have a different culture. When they have different cultures, they need to use their own concepts, the local tools and the local learning methods. So that's the difference that we can look into. And then that is the insight by the UNESCO itself. So I think it's something that Malaysia should lead some things different compared to, for example, the other country, the European countries, or in the West.
So in other words, what you're saying is that there is a need for local wisdom to be used in,
Yes,
in,
yes.
in promoting and also changing the behavior of the people regarding biodiversity conservation. Doctor, perhaps my last question to you. What role do social media and technology play when it comes to empowering youth to participate in biodiversity conservation efforts?
So, okay, this is interesting because social media and technology is in thing, especially for the youth now, and it's something that as a bait for them to, when we like to ensure them to participate wholly in the biodiversity conservation efforts. So, of course, the role of the social media when I can say in empowering the youth to participate in biodiversity conservation effort, it mostly based on the two aspects, which is the awareness and educations, where they can the role of the social media itself in terms of raising the awareness, where it can use these tools in promoting petitions, aiming at the policy changes. In fact, when the white paper before the white paper come out, so this actually can be a useful tools in nowadays to influence most of these, especially the most constituents of the global population, the youth itself, about what are the pressing issues, what are the needs, the current needs now, and then, of course, the social media also needs, it can also play a role in the education content to share in a more concise content about in a quicker way. So it's and it's the effects will be in a broader audience. So if in case we have in the universities, we have only a certain number of students, so the impact is just within that numbers. But for the social medias, it could be massive. So and another one is the aspects of this social media is can give the role in engaging and community building. So it's allowed to join the groups and communities that think alike on biodiversity conservations. So they can share ideas, so to collaborate on the projects and support each other's efforts. So this is regardless on the local tools or the local wisdom and whatnot. So they can have the spirit altogether. I mean, at the same time, they're developing, and then they can discuss what are the progress that they made. And then this is so engaging when there's engaging the spirits, and also the momentum will be there. So it's not only something that you are solely alone fighting for your own nation biodiversity conservation, but there are other friends from the other countries also fighting the same. So in the role of technology, Dr. Shea, so that's part of the social media. So I would like to take the World of an Economic Forums has mentioned and stated in the one of these forums stated that in 2024, the AI's roles in conservation is growing with the application in habitat monitoring, wildlife protection, data analysis, and pattern recognition. So all of these AI rules, which is specifically designed for the biodiversity conservation, is actually something that we need to fully utilize. As we like to fit in this sustainability, the technology also has its ticks in the aspect of the economy. So it's not only an aspect that is going to make the things that we like to do is much more easier, but then it's cost effective because we are, saving the cost for in terms of the labor when we like to do the biodiversity conversation. Previously, it took account a big chunk of a fund of money, but with the use of this technology of AI, we can cut the cost because the technology has to run it without the usage of the labor. So the synergy between the AI conservations as well as the media itself, as it actually can give some synergistic effects for use in the sense of capturing, analyzing, and biodiversity data and communicating out together.
Right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Azizi, for sharing with us your viewpoints on the topic role of youth in biodiversity conservation. One of the things that you mentioned that actually piqued my interest was when you mentioned that we need to address social, economic, and societal issues in order for us to influence behavior.
Yeah.
I think one component of societal issue is actually the role that religious teachings really play in influencing change on the behavior of the community. With regards to Islam, I think it's quite clear that Islamic teachings do have provisions for a robust framework for youth to engage in biodiversity conservation. And if we can integrate these spiritual principles with practical actions, I believe young Muslims can significantly contribute to the preservation of the natural world, ensuring that it remains vibrant and sustainable for future generations. So we have actually come to the end of our program in this week's Men and Nature. I would like to thank again Dr. Azizi bin Abu Bakar, our special guest for today's program. I believe Dr. Azizi's sharing on our topic today has been very informative and enlightening. Hopefully, Dr. Azizi will have another opportunity to be in the studio to discuss another topic, inshallah. For the last 30 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Man and Nature. I'm Sheikh Muhammad Saifuddin bin Sheikh Muhammad Saleh, signing off until next week. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.